All right, guys, thank you so much for coming out for Achieve Genius. I'm excited about this particular training because I love to learn. I love to read. I love to take courses. All of those things are a lot of fun for me, and I grow from those. But I know as well that most people tend to suffer from information overload or bright shiny object syndrome, and that's because we see so many different things that we're interested in. Sometimes we talk about that and are a little bit embarrassed or shamed about it or feel like we shouldn't be that way. But if you're wired to learn, you're going to be drawn to a lot of different avenues, a lot of different interests, even if it is in our field of work. So if we're working to create online income, then we're going to see a lot of different possibilities, and we're drawn to that. The real key is to make sure that we're learning through the process and that we're becoming better, that we're learning a skill set, or we are discovering a set of principles that we are going to be able to carry with us. And I find that that is ultra important because I want to be able to apply something over and over and over and over again. If there's one thing that's helped me in business, it's that I went from overcomplicating everything to almost oversimplifying everything, because there's usually just a handful of essentials that really matter. And today's topic, Learn Like a Genius, or to achieve genius, it really comes down to focusing on a handful of things that we are going to carry with us. I'm actually listening right now to a biography of Einstein, and I find him extremely fascinating. And at a very young age, he became very curious about the speed of light through a friend and about time continuum, and that really stayed with him for almost his whole life, right? He became interested in that one thing, and his life centered around that, so he kept coming back to it time and time and time and time again. Well, likewise, there are going to be certain core elements that are going to come back to us over and over again, and that's our true genius. It's the area that we are able to live at our top speed. We're able to accomplish at our top speed. One of the books that I'm going to be talking about a little bit today is called Start. It's by Jon Acuff. Jon, Jon, Acuff, Acuff. Just say yes in the chat box if you've read this book already. But it's called Start, Punch Fear in the Face, Escape Average, Do Work That Matters. And he's got a little switch on here that says from average to awesome. It's a really great book because it helps us locate those areas that we are really passionate about, that we're interested in, and to do well in that. And I tend to think that that's kind of our genius. It's the area that we find the most flow. One of the questions he asked in the book was, are you a speaker who's trying to write, or are you a writer who's trying to speak? Well, he knew that he is a writer who really wanted to speak as well, because they kind of go hand in hand. Well, I know that I'm much more of a speaker than I am a writer, even though I have to write sometimes, right? You know, that's just essential. It has to be done. But I'm a lot more of a communicator. Well, in all of our lives, we have certain things that we are more driven toward or drawn toward that are a lot more natural to us. And if we even apply those in our learning, we're going to find that to be a shortcut as well. So there's a few things before we hit the actual content of the 6 steps. I will learn with purpose and have a system for doing it efficiently. Our systems are not all going to be identical. I'm going to give you a 6-step system today, but it doesn't mean that you're going to have to follow it in this exact flow. You're going to find your own system, and you're going to find ways that you learn even using these 6 elements. And Thomas Edison said genius is 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration. Learning still comes down to effort. Some things we learn immediately and we get, and other things are very difficult for us and we have to press. I did extremely well with mathematics in high school, and I actually did well with statistics in college, but I could not do well at all in accounting. It slayed me every time. Worst course by far. My brain just does not work like that. I had to work a lot harder. So even if we got the 1% inspiration, it's still going to be hard. And I find that it's easier to do the hard work in things that we're naturally inclined toward. D. Blocker says, Learning is not a spectator sport, that it's not simply about acquiring knowledge, it's about the application of that knowledge that makes the difference. And what we're going to look at today is minus flow, decrease the flow of information in our lives, plus purpose, plus focus, plus efficiency, multiplied by review equals genius. And by genius, it does not mean that it just naturally comes to us. It means that we are going to be able to be one of those small percentages of people who actually learn and do something with what they learn. You remember in high school or maybe even junior high when you were taking courses and you thought, will I ever use this? That's a valid question. Will I ever use this again? And that's part of genius, is things that we use over and over and over again. So before we get to the 6 stages or the 6 steps, there are several things that hold us back from really operating the way that we should. Number 1 is bounce. We bounce from interest to interest or idea to idea or concept to concept. And that bounce is what makes us not be able to accomplish everything that we really should. I do a talk called Impact, and in it I talk about in 6 weeks I got ready for a half marathon and I'd barely run any steps at all. And the way that I was able to do that is that I downloaded a half marathon training schedule. I didn't download 50. I didn't read 50 books. I downloaded one training schedule and I adhered to it. In fact, it's on my wall right now in front of my computer. I've still got it here, but I followed that one thing and it worked out extremely well. If we're bouncing, it's going to be extremely hard for us not only to learn, but to apply, because our application time is usually pursuing the next learning endeavor. Number 2 is drift. Drift happens when we're not certain of who we are. This past week at my paulbevans.com site, I wrote about finding your voice, or found your voice, and that it's with us the whole time, but we cover it up by being professional, or we cover it up because we're not sure it's going to be accepted. And when we do that, we tend to drift. We look around us for people that we admire or things that we like, and we start to sort of silently clone those things so that we can become more like them because we see that they've been accepted. And so we move in that direction instead of simply staying where we are. So we drift, and our drifting causes us to lose our own personal identity. Now, there's nothing wrong, obviously, with learning from someone who's a mentor or a coach or someone who you admire. The danger is when we try to become like them. I've got a good friend of mine that lives down in Florida, and let me see if I can tell this story correctly, but let's say that his name is John. Well, John really admired a speaker named Jeff, and Jeff about 20 years ago was like one of the top speakers. Well, John so admired Jeff that he practiced Jeff's speech. His speech patterns, his tone, his gestures, and pretty soon he was almost identical to Jeff. And when he got up to speak, all of us who were friends with him, we thought he was joking. We're like, man, this guy's hilarious. He's trying to act like he's Jeff. But it never changed. He spoke that way off stage. He did gestures off stage in the same way. And from that point on, he really became Jeff. He completely lost his identity. So if we drift, we lose our identity. So number 1 is bounce. Number 2 is drift. Number 3 is having a short-term rather than a long-term focus. When we look at the short term, we're looking for shortcuts, and we're like, how can I do this the fastest? Instead of, how can I make a lifetime decision here? How can I do something that's going to stay with me forever? What can I learn that I'm going to be able to do constantly? One of the things that I teach in online business that is so basic, it's almost embarrassing, is that, you have your site that you send traffic to, you sign people up for your list, and you make offers. And that's it. That's really the entire business model. There's not much more to it than that. And those are foundational principles that are lifelong. Now, somebody might come along today and say, here's the best form of web traffic. And you don't know if that's going to last a week. You don't know if it's going to last a month. You don't know if it's going to last a year because it's more of a fad in that moment of something that's working. And I've never been the guy that really jumped on those too quick. I waited to see, hey, is this a long-term set possibility? Because I want to do things once that are going to work over and over and over and over again. I don't want to have to keep discovering the new thing, right? So number 3 was short-term rather than long-term focus. Number 4 is eating but not exercising. If we eat and we don't exercise, what's going to happen? Well, we're just going to balloon, right? And when I say eating, I mean we're eating donuts and we're eating everything else out there. We'll just balloon. Now, even if we eat correctly, but we don't exercise, we won't have muscle tone. We won't be in great shape. We could have a great appearance, but our heart could be extremely weak because we're eating, we're consuming, but we're not activating. So we've got to do that to learn like a genius. We've got to make sure that we're actually activating that work. You know, if I was to get into biking and I read books on biking, I took courses, learned about gears, learned about the best seat, best tires. If I learned how to change a tire on the roadway if I'm in the middle of nowhere, and if I joined a Facebook group and we're talking about biking all the time, but I never get on a bike, guess what? I will not be able to ride. So as long as I'm taking all these courses, as long as I'm eating, but I'm not exercising, I'm never going to become proficient. Now, if I don't become proficient, I'm never going to be a genius at that thing. Now, I don't have to be a genius at everything. But if I'm really good at a handful of things that I do really well, then I'm able to learn quicker in that particular area. And then if I'm not going to be proficient in it, that may be something that I actually hand off. All right, so let's look at this flow right here, this negative flow plus purpose plus focus plus efficiency times review equals genius. So I will slow down the incoming flow of information. I don't need more knowledge, books, magazines, websites, until I do something of value with the knowledge that I already have. You know, one of the big keys there is value, is that whatever we're doing, whatever we're working on or working toward, that we do something valuable with it. I think part of the value, even with the current knowledge, is to find out what priority it needs to be in. So a lot of us probably have read a lot of books. We've taken a lot of courses. Our hard drive is full of things. You need to go back through and prioritize those and say, you know what? I didn't put my full effort in there. I love what Shelley's saying here. I need to leverage my current resources and knowledge. Go into your current resources, everything that you've bought, everything that you've studied, and go back through and say, is this something I need to hold on to right now? And you might put a plus by it if you want to keep it, and a minus by it if you don't. Everything that is essential for me as far as current knowledge and current train of thought resides on my desk. Now, I say current knowledge and current train of thought, but let me give you some of my book titles here. I've got No Excuses by Brian Tracy. That's not a new book, but I love the thought and the concept behind it, so it stays on my desk. How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. I don't know what year that was, but it wasn't last year. I mean, that's an old book, but it's core and it's valuable and it has principles that I have to constantly put into practice. So these are long-term elements that I keep on my desk. Now, short-term elements I keep on the bottom shelf of my bookshelf. These are things that I currently need to work on or I need to learn that I'm about to put into practice. So if I actually had a physical Facebook course, I would be studying that right now as I'm learning more and more about Facebook ads, getting traffic from Facebook, running different types of campaigns, etc. So that's something that I'm interested in right now. Some of you guys may have been doing it for a long time. I really haven't, but I'm interested in it right now. So I'm learning, but right when I learn something, I go and I apply it. I make sure that I'm doing something of value with knowledge that I already have. Usually our brain tells us that if we had that one more thing, if that next item that's now being released. If I can master it, then I'll have it made. But if we've got a pattern of not using what we currently have, chances are we're not going to use the next thing that we buy. So I think that that's one of the big keys for us, is to make sure that we're utilizing what we're saying or what we're learning. Dinah says, Paul, you're in my head again. I'm always training and learning, but not applying to see if it actually works. And Dinah, that can be a challenge, because if you're like me and you love to learn, there's great joy in learning. There's a lot of joy in taking the course. I love it. And sometimes I will take courses simply to learn or to investigate or to satisfy curiosity, and I may not have a plan in that moment to actually do something with it. But I've had to move back from that because I can spend so much time doing that. And one of our next steps is actually going to help us. Step number 2 is going to help us with this. Yeah, you're right, Shelly. Choose to eliminate. So that's step number 1. Step number 2 is I will have a why. Now, this becomes your filter. Suddenly, it shifts things like crazy. Before I consume information of any kind, I will understand clearly why I want to consume it. What specifically am I looking to improve or change? That's a valuable question. Before I consume information of any kind, I'll understand clearly why I want to consume it. What specifically am I looking to improve or change? Now, when we know what we're working on right now, then that can become the catalyst. Instead of we open our email and there's an ad or some sales copy, and we get sucked into it and we get convinced that that's what we need. But if we already knew what we needed, then whatever entered our email box would be of no consequence, because only if it matched up to that need would I need to do something with it. In the chat box, if you would, guys, put down some of the things that you currently need in your business or life, things that you're working on, things that you're interested in, a step that you feel like is essential for the work that you're doing right now. See Shelly typing. In your website, you may say, I need traffic right now. Or I need a product right now. Or I need a goal. I need to start at the very beginning. So what are some things that you need right now? All right, so Deborah says, I need a goal and a product. And so if Deborah needs a product, she may be on the lookout for a product development course. And she may already have one, actually. And so if she's got that, that's what she needs to focus on. So something hits her email box and says, you know what? Here's the best way to get traffic to your website. And Deborah may be going, I need to get this course because, you know what? It goes off the market tomorrow. And if I don't get it now. And then she goes, nope. Right now, I'm looking to create a product. I'm not looking for traffic. Shelly says guest blogging to drive new traffic to offers and have those offers and sequences ready. So the first priority may be to have those offers and sequences ready. And here's a hint I would give you, Shelly. I would just have one ready because you can add them pretty quickly. But I'd have one ready right off the bat. And then go after those guest blogging. And you may be going, I don't know exactly how to do that. So you buy a course on guest blogging, you study it, and you apply it. But everything else does not exist. Dinah says getting relevant traffic to website and to Facebook. So you may actually start with one of those. You may say, all right, I really want to build my Facebook fan page, and that's going to be my priority. So that's what you study. Another course comes out and says how to build your Twitter followers. And you go, nope, not doing that because I need to be focused on Facebook. So your why becomes your filter. You know why you need to consume it because it's linked to something that you want to accomplish right now. So super important to be focused on that type of mindset. Number 3, I will look for key ideas. I will look for key ideas. Statements and strategies, anything that can be summed up in a word, sentence, or 2 sentences at the most. These are things that you look for that your mind is automatically drawn toward. And it happens in books, it happens in courses. It's that aha moment where you go, oh, boom, that's it. And my best friend, Carrie Wilkerson, always asks that on webinars. She'll say, what was your aha moment? And why do so many people have different aha moments? Because we are different. We're wired differently, different interests, different levels of engagement. We're in different places in our life and we have different geniuses. And so different things stand out to us. So that key idea is going to pop for you. I know that you were hoping this would happen today. I'm going to read to you a section from a book. That's right. It's pretty rare for me to read to you guys. Do not fall asleep. This is not a bedtime story. This is from the book Start. This is something that I was listening to in the gym this morning, and it just hammered me. It was so strong for me. You may not connect with this at all, but it's an example of looking for key ideas. So this is on page 131 of a real book. This is not Kindle. Start by Jon Acuff, mountain climber. A one-legged mountain climber once told me something really interesting. He had lost his leg in a climbing accident but still lived on the mountain. In between taking photos for magazines, he can be found clinging to cliffs and whatnot. At an event, I talked to him about the only mountain climbing story I had. It was a short one and basically went like this. Have you seen the cover of the latest National Geographic? The guy standing on the cliff? How crazy is that? That was it. Just like that, I was out of mountain climbing material. Fortunately, he had plenty. That's Alex Honnold, my friend. I'm friends with him. He's amazing. Alex is one of the top solo climbers in the world. Solo climbing means he climbs without ropes and without anyone else. The only thing he brings to the mountain is a small bag of chalk and his iPod. He then scales 1,000 feet up a cliff, carefully putting his callous fingers in the inch-wide fissures so that he doesn't plummet to his death. The climber, photographer friend told me that Alex was starting to get a lot of national media attention. One afternoon, a team of photographers tied themselves in different parts of the mountain so they could capture Alex as he ascended. Alex went so fast the photographers really couldn't keep up. Every few hundred feet, he was forced to find 3 inches of a ledge and pause there while photographers repositioned their ropes and gear. How is Alex handling all this newfound fame, I asked. Being on the cover of National Geographic is no joke. The photographer thought for a few seconds and he says, well, Alex's point of view is, I'm going to climb mountains because it's what I do. I'm a mountain climber. So if you want to come along and take photos of me and pay money, that's cool. But I was going to do this anyway. Alex was going to climb mountains. That's what he does. That's who he is. His road to awesome is just like yours, except it's vertical. And if you ever see a video of him, you'll know instantly that he's doing the right thing. On the ground, he's kind of awkward. He seems uncomfortable, completely out of his element. On the mountain, he transforms. He was going to do it anyway. How about you? What were you going to do anyway? We all have something like that. We all have a passion or two, like Alex. For me, it's creating ideas. I love that I get paid to write books and consult with companies. Both are a lot of fun, but regardless of the money, I was going to do those anyway. I'm a writer. That's what writers do. They share ideas. So that thought of I was going to do that anyway was my key phrase just about for this entire book. It's what stood out to me more than anything. Achieve at the beginning of this year was birthed out of I was going to do this anyway. I actually had no thought or concept or goal. One of my coaching clients asked me, what's your goal for Achieve? How much do you want to make with it? I said, I don't have any financial goal with Achieve. I'm going to do this. This is a project for me that I'm interested in. You see, I was going to do this anyway. Often when it comes to business and when it comes to other areas of life, we start out with what we want from it. You know, I need to make some money, so now I'll do anything to make money. Instead of saying, what would I do anyway? Guess what? I'm going to read anyway. I'm going to study anyway. I'm going to speak anyway. I'm going to train anyway. I'm going to encourage people anyway. I'm going to help people reach their goals anyway. I have people at church all the time that come up and say, hey, you got time for breakfast this week or lunch this week? I'm thinking about setting up something online. See, I help people do their online stuff anyway. So a lot of the things that you're doing right now, guys, that you would be doing anyway are a big part of your genius. It's what you're drawn to, it's what you love, and it's what you enjoy. Now, it doesn't mean that it's automatically going to become profitable. It's not do what you love and the money will follow necessarily. But if there are things that you would be doing anyway, that's why there's so many successes out there that started as unknown bloggers and then ended up becoming pretty wealthy, because they did something they were going to do anyway. They were going to share their voice anyway. They were going to share their ideas anyway. They were going to share their photos anyway. And then it ended up becoming a business quite by accident. The cool thing is that we can take some of the things that we're going to do anyway and actually make them intentionally a business, and it makes it pretty easy. So as we're out there learning, we want to look for these key ideas, these statements, these strategies, anything that can be summed up in a word or sentence or two sentences at the most, that we're able to write down and capture from this course that we're taking or this book that we're reading, things that we highly connect with. Number 4, I will think about it and I will visualize it. I'll think about what I learned and how to apply it. I will visualize scenarios of me using it. Now, this is a step that we tend not to do because we love to go straight to the action. If we finally get to the point of application, then we usually jump in. I don't like to read a lot of instructions, honestly, and I don't like to read through the instructions first. I like to start with step 1 and I do it, and then I go to step 2. Unfortunately, around step 10, somebody tells me something that was essential that I needed to know back at step 1. So if I will visualize the entire process, sometimes it makes it a little bit easier to get to that completion. This morning, before I went to the gym, I didn't go, on a strict time frame of visualizing everything, but I did mentally visualize every set that I was going to do, every exercise that I was going to do. I visualized the weight that I was going to lift of every exercise before I got in the gym. That way I didn't have to get there and start thinking, well, what is it that I want to do? What exercise do I need to do first? I already had it planned. I was already connected with it, and I was already attached mentally to it because I was visualizing the scenarios of me using it. Well, that's a little bit easy in the gym, right? But if the first time I went in the gym, I wouldn't be able to do this. I wouldn't be able to visualize that exercise because I hadn't done it yet, right? If you've never installed a blog, you can't visualize it first, but you can visualize the end result. And that can help you so much to see that positive outcome. Shelly says, I see myself going through my files with the how can I use this eye. I think that's a great exercise, Shelly. I think it'll help you tremendously. Number 5, I will use a knowledge capturing system. A knowledge capturing system. I'll create a series of knowledge pages, one per page. I do this. It's kind of my whole plan. Makes it pretty easy. Shelly says Evernote. I'll capture new ideas as short sentences and add them to the appropriate page as bullet points, include simple drawings when needed. I am a drawer, so I do a lot of things that are very visual for me that allow me to see the thing that I'm thinking about. And with all of these, I will make lists, and then I go back through and I cross out things. I write down, it's like a hot sheet. So I might have the name of a book, like start at the top. I make notes all the way down the page, and then I let it rest about a week. I go back, go through that list, and I cross out things that don't seem to be hot anymore, that I'm just not thrilled about anymore. And that allows me to find out what I'm really going to keep, what I'm going to concentrate on, and what's going to allow me to progress. Deborah says, too, that she loves Evernote. I think that works great. I've shared this resource before, but bulletjournal.com, and you'd actually have to learn how to use this system, but I think it's a great way to see how you can create your own system so that you're using different symbols and different setups for you to give priority and to know exactly what you're doing and when you're doing it. Well, you can do that with your knowledge as well. You could set up your own kind of bullet journal for your own knowledge to find out what's really important. Now, even when you're taking a course that you get to return to over and over and over again, I highly encourage you to take notes. I'm a full believer in making sure that you're writing things down, you're connecting with the knowledge that you're gaining. So there is a physical connection with it. and that you're able to transfer that really into your body quite literally through that action. So that the more senses we get involved, the more we're going to capture that information and remember that information. 6, I will regularly review core knowledge. I will regularly review core knowledge. These are the things that you're going to end up staying with you long term, so that you will come back to it over and over again, rely on it over and over again. Just like I was going to be doing that anyway, that is a phrase that I will rely on over and over again. And every time that I start a new project, one of my questions will be, would I be doing this anyway? Why am I doing this? Is this something that's really long term, or do I just feel like it's a necessity right now? Something as simple as that can really make a big difference. If I'll regularly review what I'm working on, what I'm doing, then it's going to be pretty easy to come back to that and make sure that it's locked in. What I do is that I have a daily review list, a weekly review list, a monthly review list, and a quarterly review list. That might sound like a lot, but my daily is only a handful of things that I'm really looking at, that I'm engaged at that particular time. But it's something that I want to be looking at and reminded of every single day. So it's part of my core knowledge. Every week, I might have something that I'll review. Since I actually developed 5 stones, I will do that every single week. I'll review my goals and I'll review the stones associated with those. I'll review my milestones, my cornerstones, my stepping stones, my tombstones, and my firestones. So I look at that. I even use firestones in my business. If you go to paulbevans.com and if you look down the page a little bit and you see achieve, engage, and build, you'll notice there's a symbol by each one. That's not simply a graphic to have a graphic. That's my firestone. It's a visual representation of how I'm connected to that particular word. And so that allows me to review that core that I need to keep coming back to. Now, your core is going to shift. There's going to be some things that will always be there that you're going to look at day in and day out. And it may be your purpose. It may be the dream that you're chasing at that time. But then other things are going to shift. You may have core knowledge for 1 month as you learn about Facebook. Core knowledge for 1 month as you learn about list building. And then as those things shift, then you can re-engage at a different level. So core does not mean that it's never shifting. It simply means that at this particular time, this is knowledge that's important to me, connects to me, and it's what I need to make sure I'm staying active on. And it's going to, again, prevent you from chasing a lot of these other things because they're not part of your core. And remember that step 2 was that you would have a why for everything that you learn. And so that is the 6-step system of learning like a genius. It's super easy. Obviously, it didn't take that long to go through, but we need to focus on that. Guys, you have any questions before we close out today? Any questions about any of these steps? And let me roll back through those real quick. Any questions about I'll slow down the incoming flow? I will have a why. I will look for key ideas. I will think about it, visualize it. I will use a knowledge capture system. I will regularly review core knowledge. Any questions about any of those before we close out? Deborah says, number 1 is really hard. It is, Deborah. That's why I mentioned that if you did that right off the bat, it might be difficult because you really need step 2 and you need step 6 in order for step 1 to really be possible. You've really got to know your why and what you're working on right now. Jimmy D. Brown, it has a couple of good rules that he uses. And these are optional. You can just think about these, especially the second one. But rule number 1 is that all of emails that are not from friends go into a folder that he will look at like once a month or maybe on Saturday. So all these sales messages, he doesn't even see those. And I can't remember what his term is for the second one, but I'm going to use the term sucker. When you sign up for an email list, instead of putting your name in there, put the name sucker in. And so when it comes in and says, hey, sucker, I've got a brand new product for you today, then that might inhibit you a little bit or remind you when you were signing up for that particular list, you might have been doing it out of that, hey, I got this email, and so I'm chasing this little dream deal that's taking place. Now, of course, all my emails you need to use your actual name, but if you do that at some of these scam sites, or you get to a site that you're kind of questioning, if you put sucker in there, that could be something that every time it hits your email box, you'd be like, oh yeah, that's that thing that I signed up for where I thought they were trying to scam me. So that's just a little option. I thought that was pretty good, but that helped with number one as well. All right, any other questions? Shelly's typing. Describe a daily review process and maybe how it ties into a task list or benchmarks. That's a good question, Shelly. I look at those are very similar. Okay, so my daily review has to do with my task for the day. So that is included. My benchmarks, there may be a benchmark for the day that is tied to the task, or the benchmark may be for the week, or it may be for the month. And if it's monthly, I may only review that at the beginning of the week. I may not stay focused on it. So I like to wake up in the morning, do my exercise, things along those lines, quiet time, and then I begin my review process. My review process includes looking at my current purpose. What is it that I'm concentrating on? I'm concentrating right now on helping people achieve whatever they want to chase in life, whatever they're wanting to pursue, whatever result is that they want to gain. I'm helping people engage their audience, and I'm helping people architect their economy. So those are kind of my overall purposes that I look at. Now, because of that, that gives me a lot of flexibility because that is 3 different areas. But then I'll look over what it is that I'm concentrating on. So let's say that I'm reading a book at that time, and I will say, will this book help with achieve, engage, or build? And it needs to be associated with that, because if I'm going to be helping myself grow in those areas and helping other people grow in those areas, I want to make sure that it's very similar. The reason I'm rereading Start right now is because it hits build. It matches up with that. So I'll make sure that I've got my purpose or my why, and then I'll look at my tasks or my benchmarks, and I make sure that those are aligned, that the things that I'm doing are going to contribute to the overall goal or purpose of my, let's say, business. Now, I'll also review things that are related to physical fitness, because I'm like everybody else. I ebb and flow. I'll lose some weight. I'll gain some weight back. I'll be focused on muscle mass, or I'll be focused on being lean, or I'll be focused on lifting heavy, or I'll focus on running. And so I look at what I'm doing at that particular time and make sure that it's aligned with my overall purpose. So even my diet for today, I actually have to write down what I'm going to eat, when I'm going to eat, or I'll find myself in the pantry and see a box of cereal. So I knew this morning that at 7:30 I was going to be drinking protein. I knew at 9:30 I was going to be eating chicken. I knew at noon I was going to be eating some lean red meat protein. And I knew that right before we came on, I was going to eat another couple of grilled chicken strips. And I know that when we get off, I'm going to probably take a protein drink around 4:30 or 5, and I'll be done. And that'll be it. But I already know those times, and I know what I'm going to consume. And so that makes a big difference too. Yeah, Shelly, I'll look at personal focus as well, because it's life. We're living life. We're not simply working. We've got life that we're involved in. And so we want to do as much as possible with the time that we have in the areas that we're committed to. So hopefully that made sense. Good, good. Anything else, guys? Good. I'm glad. Glad, Deborah. I like this concept. I know we went through it pretty quick today, but I think that as you work through these 6 steps, it's going to make it a little bit easier for you to make decisions on what you need to learn and how you need to learn it. And it will unlock our genius. And geniuses focus on the areas that they're most interested in, that they're most drawn to, and that's where they spend a majority of their time. You didn't ever see Einstein writing any papers on bicycling. He was writing on things, greater than that because he was focused on it. Or he didn't talk about his painting. He focused on the area that was really close to him and dear to his heart. All right, guys. Well, I hope you have a great rest of the day wherever your day may be. Thank you so much for coming out. And this replay will be up in just a little bit. Favorite takeaway, would I do this anyway? Good. I love that, Shelly. You're welcome. You guys have a great day, a blessed day. And I'll also put this infographic up in the members area as well this afternoon. So it'll be in there by tonight. As always, success is not an accident. Be blessed.